Welcome to the Flychain Reaction, a podcast designed to empower healthcare providers like you to master the business side of running a practice. Each episode sparks a chain reaction where actionable insights on financial management, operational efficiency, and growth strategies build upon each other, creating a powerful ripple effect to help your organization thrive. With Flychain's financial expertise and insights from industry leaders, we'll dive into everything you need to ignite success. Join us and let the Flychain reaction spark growth in your healthcare business.
Welcome to another episode of the Flychain Reaction, where we bring together industry experts in really an effort to educate, engage, and empower healthcare business owners. And you always hear us at Flychain say it takes a village to run a healthcare business. And whether you're just getting started and you kind of don't know what you don't know, or you've been working for several years and probably have made a lot of mistakes along the way and are looking to maybe scale, regardless of kind of what camp you fall into, one thing is very clear from our lens, is that there's always things to learn and ways to improve. And with that, we're thrilled to welcome the amazing team from ABA Business Coach, Molly and Asia. How's it going?
Hi.
Good to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see you again. I know, just a little background, we've kind of been partners now for a while. You've got your tech vendors specializing in certain things to help really optimize operations. And we've been engaging, we share a lot of customers together. And with that, would love to hear a little bit more about yourselves, what you're up to, who you work with, what got you in here. Your story is pretty amazing. And I think our customers and audience would love to hear that.
Yeah. Well, I'm Asia, for those of you who we haven't met yet. Molly is my wife and started ABA Business Coach and business partner. Started ABA Business Coach a few years ago, and then she was like, "Hey, I'm doing this thing. It's going well. You want to jump in?" And I was like, "Well, sure. What do you need help with?" And I've been in the space with Molly for some time, and really what it comes down to is helping business owners succeed, right, with ease and joy. We're both entrepreneurs. I started my entrepreneurial background in the fitness space, and one of the things that really made the difference was coaching and mentorship. And we didn't see that a lot in this space, and not done well. And so we really put this together as a response to really people being like, "Hey, I'm starting an ABA business. Can you help me? What's going on?" And Molly, I'm sure you can speak more about that.
Yeah. So like Asia said, I got this started a few years back. I've been running the Global Autism Project now for over 20 years. And about 10 years ago, people started just reaching out kind of unofficially asking for help. And then I would say 5 or 6 years ago, it ramped up even more. And then I kind of tagged Asia and hey, you can help with this too. You're an entrepreneur. Come on. But the biggest thing that really made us want to start this specifically is we saw those clinician owners running a business, really burning the candle at both ends, really just trying to do it all, trying to figure it all out. And as someone who'd been an entrepreneur, still is, but who had been through, I don't know, have I been through the worst of it? I don't know, but been through the, I have no idea, throwing everything at the wall, seeing what sticks, hoping and praying. I just wanted to tighten up that learning curve for folks. Like you said, people don't know what they don't know, right? And having had a clinical background before I started the Global Autism Project, there was something to me very heartbreaking about seeing clinician owners run their businesses in this way that really doesn't work. And there were exceptions to this, of course, right? But lots of overwhelm, lots of frustration, lots of quitting, lots of selling. And sometimes that went well, and sometimes that didn't go well. And part of what we want to do at ABA Business Coach, part of what we are doing at ABA Business Coach, is we are creating clinician owners who know how to crush it in business so that clinician owners can drive the direction of this field. There's just such a need for clinician owners to be making the decisions, driving the direction of this field. This is a relatively new field, and ABA businesses are opening up every single day. And so we want to make sure that they're doing that in a way that really works.
Yeah, that makes so much sense to us, and kind of candidly, I think we share a similar mission of
Yeah. So really we work with the clinician owner, right? First of all, you're a clinician and you typically, like the typical story we see, doesn't have to be this way, but somebody who used to work in another center, maybe in big box, and just saw some things that weren't going the best. And so, and maybe they were just overworked and just not really having the quality of life, or having or seeing the quality of services that they wanted to see. And so people, they go and they start their own thing. And so whether they're like just starting out, like whether you're just figuring out like, hey, I want to start this ABA company. I don't know what I'm doing, but I know that I want to do this and I can do this and I'm a BCBA and I want to make this work. Or maybe you're more established, right? And you have like you've been in this maybe from like a couple years to 10 years or 15 years, and you're just finding that you're bumping up against the same problems over and over again. You're still dealing with struggles that, ostensibly you think that you should be done with by now, or maybe you've grown and then you don't really know how to handle the growth or what that next.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. So that's who we've been working with up until now. And in the next couple of months, we're actually launching a program for startups to minimize the you don't know what you don't know, to minimize the accidentally spending thousands of dollars you didn't need to spend, because we hear about that a lot with some of our folks who are in their earlier stage. One of the very first things we can kind of do is go like, oh my gosh, you don't need to spend that money on this. Here's a much more efficient way to do this. Here's, here's a different way to set it up. You're not quite ready for that software yet, et cetera. And, listen, I spend a lot of time in the Facebook groups with business owners. Sometimes people go, I know your name. And I'm like, you hang out in Facebook groups with business owners? And I see people over and over again going, hey, I'm just getting started. Who should I have do X, Y, Z? And it's like, none of that yet, so helping people really start lean, start just for as little money and resources as possible, as responsibly as possible. We're really into not quite a $0 startup, but certainly a low dollar startup. Because you can especially in this field, especially if you're a clinician owner, you can start with extraordinarily low overhead and just build so that you never have to, take 6 months of savings and set it aside to start working with kids on your own.
It makes a lot of sense from our lens in particular too, where sometimes we see people spend a little too much upfront, and then it kind of shoots them in the foot going forward because they have a cash balance, and when that rainy day occurs, there's not really much money to turn to. But in terms of like these 4 pillars, because we absolutely really like that. I thought it would be cool to kind of go through these together as we try and educate and leave our audience with some takeaways here. But
I'll start off with this one. So, when you go and like you're a business owner and you're filling out payroll, and you look at the payroll, and then you realize like, dang, how am I going to make this happen? Or, man, I'm paying all these people money. I guess this time I have to forego my paycheck in order to make this happen. And so what we realized and what we work people with on is, really it's about knowing your numbers and what certain numbers, like what those numbers need to be and to look good, right? So a lot of times, like we'll work with people. I remember we worked with somebody, and on our first phone call, we talked to her, and we were like, okay, so what's your collections rate? And she was like, what's that? And we're like, oh, okay. And so then we worked with her and we figured it out. It's like, okay, so how much money are you billing out for? And then how much money are you actually collecting? And she's like, I have no idea. And then she figured it out and she was like, wow, it's like 67%. And we're like, okay. So if you make this adjustment, switch this billing company, and we get this up to 95%, we did the math and it was $180,000 that she was missing, and that she had no idea and had been operating her business this way for years, right? And so we find this all the time, and that's just one area where people don't know that they're just missing money, right? And so that's one of the biggest things we do is we work with people to know, okay, so like what are the numbers that you are like that you need to know, and what are those leaky buckets, right? Like, so we call them leaky buckets, and how do you fix them? Another area that we like to go to work on is number of hours, right? Number of billables. A lot of times we find that business owners, they're coming from a certain background and they really don't want to feel like they're working their staff too much. But at the end of the day, the numbers have to make sense. And are they hitting like your number of billables in order for you to run a sustainable business? So it becomes like that becomes a big question too. And then looking at things like cancellations and like was it for your staff? Is it your clients and how to figure those things out? And those are just like a few of the areas that we start off with, and then we go much deeper. And Molly, I don't know if you want to talk anything else along those lines, but yeah.
Of course, I always do. So, so one of the things you were saying, Ethan, is you can't make the right decisions without the data. There's actually research that shows this as well. You can't make the right decisions about anything if you're under financial duress, right? It's this whole concept of poverty. And when you don't know where your next paycheck's coming from, your next meal's coming from, you literally can't make the decisions that you need to make. And so that's why we start out with the finance sprint and we call it the find the money sprint because of these examples that Asia is talking about. And I'll just really simply, one of the ways that we talk about it is it's like we have to know authorized hours to scheduled hours to rendered hours to hours we get paid for. And once you can have absolute clarity on that kind of pipeline, looking at hours and money, you'll start to see that the maths. Also, to her point about the salaries, the hours, the math isn't mathing because the hours are too low, right? And again, clinician background. So I'm never going to be one of these people who comes in and says, that's it, 25 hours minimum all the time across the board. I'm like, let's do the math. Let's figure it out. Let's figure out what's appropriate. And oh, by the way, this is a lovely segue into our next sprint. But if we ramp up hours, what is the workload going to look like for those BCBAs? We can't just come in and just ramp up hours. And then I think lastly, the thing to think about in finance is, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners will resonate with this, is like people go, well, I'm not a numbers person. It's like numbers person or not, as a business owner, you have to have an understanding of the math. And if the maths, we say that all the time, is math mathing? And we have a number of tools that we've developed to just create some more clarity, some more transparency. One that people use all the time and their heads explode a little bit when they get the results is the BCBA salary calculator. There is this wild idea that it doesn't matter how much you pay your BCBAs because you make the money on the 97153. Well, I am here to let you know. And oh, by the way, if you want that BCBA salary calculator, I don't know if there's show notes or what, but we can get you guys a link.
We'll throw it in there afterwards. Yeah.
That would be great because it really, sometimes people find that they're losing $16,000 a year off the top, right? And that's a lot of 97153 to make up that salary. So little things like that we've created tools for as well to make it a little more like somebody said the other day, like I'm still not a numbers person, but I can look at them and I can learn from them. It's like, that's good. We're warming up.
It's like, hey, we have a starting place now. And I think that's also why we love working with you is so much of this is our obsession with just getting the clean data so that folks like you and owners don't have to worry about putting it in there and interpreting it. They just have to understand definitions of what some of these things are so they can make some proactive course correction.
This area is my favorite. I think that I don't know why this is. I genetically like to have things be productive and effective. And I have this interest in doing a lot of big things in the world, right? I'm the founder and CEO of the Global Autism Project and co-founder of ABA Business Coach. And there are some other things that I do on the side. And we have a almost 2-year-old daughter, right? And in order to do all of this, it doesn't mean I have all this crazy stuff on my plate and I'm some sort of superwoman. It means I delegate. Like it's my job, right? Like it is my job, right? But I delegate, right? And so there've been over the years, I've really seen more like we can have it all, we can't do it all, right? And I don't even want to do it all. I'm like the first person who's like, can someone else do that? Great, right? But this is a hugely challenging thing for clinician owners to wrap their heads around is how do I actually take things off my plate in a way that really works. And I'll give you just a couple of little takeaways here. And I think the biggest myth in delegation is that it has occurred. Most often, when we think we are delegating, we are actually abdicating. We are releasing ourselves of all responsibility having to do with this thing. And if you've done this, if you've ever gone, oh, I asked so and so to get that authorization done. Now I'm realizing it's not done. And now I'm working outside of an auth period. And now I'm not getting paid $18,000. True story. That's what happens, right?
Oh, yeah.
So the type of work that is on your plate as a clinician owner is mission critical, right? And what I mean by that is if it doesn't happen, we talked about auth to schedule to all that, right? If it doesn't happen, the math doesn't math, the business can't run, et cetera. And so we teach what we call the 80-20 delegation, which is you are going to say you're delegating an authorization, a progress report, right? You're going to do that first 10%. You're going to delegate with checkpoints the bulk of that, 80% of that. And because you have delegated and not abdicated, you are going to ultimately still be responsible for that deadline and for the quality of that report. Now, you are a behavior analyst. You can shape this over time. You can start with 70-30. You can go to 80-20. You can so you're just looking at it at the beginning and looking at it at the end. So just a little quick thing there on delegation. The other thing that we teach is batching your tasks. So for instance, if you are writing newsletters for families love these, right? You write a bunch of content all at once on the same day. This does not have to be, every day I have to write this new thing. I have to add, no, right? So batching your tasks. And then the other piece and we go into this a lot more, I'm giving you very kind of really quickly all my favorite things. The other thing is rituals or maintenance tasks. What are those recurring tasks that have to happen all the time, no matter what? And Flychain helps with this, right? We have to review the
same thing. It's like, look at your numbers just once a day to make sure things aren't going south.
Exactly. So that allows that's a maintenance task or what we call a ritual, right? And so getting those really, really dialed in, because those rituals, those maintenance tasks are the first things that you're able to take off your plate. And we teach people how to use project management software. Shout out to my favorite, Asana. Because guys, don't use your brain to remember things. Reduce your cognitive load as much as possible because you have a lot of big decisions to make as a business owner. So you want to reduce all of did I schedule that doctor's appointment? Oh, did I do this? Oh, did I do that? Right? And so using a software that allows you to set these things up on a recurring basis. Oh, did I change the air filter in the center in the first? Oh, they said I had to, right? And so having things shift from like, can I grab you for a sec or like pulling your attention? It's just, you've got it all scheduled in. So
Systematize, kind of create some good habits there.
My favorite.
Yeah, I it's clearly, I'm feeling inspired. In terms of like the next topic, so this one is sort of near and dear to my heart. It's also not something that, once again, we have a lot of experience, but we experience.
I can start. Yeah. So, one of the things, like we see this actually all the time when private equity, because they don't really get like the nuance and the cultural aspect. A lot of times they come in and it's like, oh, why can't you just like do the math and like have more hours and get more and bill more time and have more clients? We're like, oh no, that's not how it works. And what happens is when it comes to the culture, right? It's either by design or by default. And so often people just let their culture be what it is. They don't think it matters, right? They don't think it's like, it's not designed. And so, when you're tolerating, we say oftentimes that, A players like to play with A players. And when you're tolerating this like B and C level type of player, that's going to bring everybody down. That's going to affect your culture, right? And so, like, one, paying attention to that and like really dialing that in. And that's also what's going to set you apart, especially if you're in a situation or a community where, you're surrounded by, big box that can afford to maybe pay people more. And it's like, well, what's going to set you apart that has people not only like want to come to you, but like want to stay? And it's not necessarily based on the amount of money that you can pay, right? So what makes that difference? It's the culture, right? It's your environment. It's how you are with your employees. And that does not mean you have to light yourself on fire to keep everybody warm, and you have to give people everything that they want and have people walk all over you. That's not what that means. What it means is you have a culture that really works for you, that's focused on growth, that allows contribution and respect, that has people really like step up and be leaders. And so that's one aspect. And then the other aspect we really go into is what we call the hiring flywheel. And it's really a mechanism to not only attract top talent all the time, but essentially it's like a faucet. Like when you need a switch, when you need some people, you can flip the switch, and you've got a bunch of people who want to work for you at the rate that you can pay them, and who are ready and willing to come on and work for you. And that takes something. It takes a setup and some proper components, but we set up those components of the flywheel with you in your business so that you can flip the switch whenever you need. You're not in this place of, oh, let me go and search on Indeed and spend a bunch of money, and hopefully I'm going to get applicants that aren't just truck drivers trying to be work for me. And not saying there's anything wrong with truck drivers, but like not qualified, right? Like not what you're looking for. And
Right.
so like through the hiring flywheel, we set it up so that you get the qualified people. You're not having to spend a ton of money on Indeed. You can flip that switch. And the way that we teach your onboarding process also creates this, what we call the Ivy League effect, where people really want to be a part of you. They're like, I'm going to choose. It's like, why would you choose Harvard over like the state school, right? Like, why is that? Because there's a prestige. There's something about your culture. There's something about who you are as a company that they teach people how to build, that has people be like, yes, like this, for like, it's not the highest paying, and that's okay, but this is where I want to be and I want to stay. And Molly, is there anything you want to add to that?
Well, I was just going to say, we call our clients a lot. All of our clients, I think, start because they didn't like what they saw
Yeah.
out there. Either they worked in big box, or they worked for something small that couldn't get the business thing figured out. And so if that didn't work either, right?
Right.
And so they started their own thing, and they go to write their ad, and they go to Indeed, and they look at, what do all the other ads say? Oh, I should say that too.
Copy paste.
Right, copy
Yes.
paste, but you started this
Yeah.
because you wanted to do it differently. And so when you can show that in that initial interaction that somebody has with you, and then there can be something different, something special about the process with you versus all the other processes that they're going through, then their yes, I'm going to work with you isn't yes, you're offering $1 more an hour. It's yes, I'm all in. I've loved
Yeah.
everything about this process. Everything's been really unique, really tailored. And so when you are able to do that, you are able to hire people who are just an awesome fit. And
Yeah.
that's really what it's about, right? And I think the other part of that is we often think hiring ends with they said yes. We teach that hiring actually ends with like successful first 6 months, right? Even that
Yeah.
90-day review, it's like people can hold it together for 90 days, right? Successful first 6 months. We have a lot of data. Harvard Business Review's done things, right, on showing retention. Like if people last 6 months, they tend to last a lot longer. And so
Yep.
thinking about that process all the way through from they saw your ad, hopefully not Indeed, because we teach you how to get off Indeed. They met you somewhere, and now they work for you, and now they're all in. And so I think
Yeah.
that's a really, really important piece there.
It's so important. And I also will say what you said in there around like retention of employees tends from a finance running the numbers profitability standpoint.
Yeah.
When you have someone leave, like the opportunity cost there tends to be far, far greater. And just to like really double click that, investing more time in setting the right culture and having positive selection so that you're bringing the right people in that are going to stay, like investing a little bit more upfront in time, whatever that might be, like it just inevitably pays dividends down the line.
Totally.
Because if you're switching, well, then, okay, there's an offboarding cost, there's a new hiring cost, there's a training cost. And, that little investment there can really bite you down the line if you're not doing it. So, and I also think, just like you said, it's just a good precedent for culture. And that's, once again, we think about stuff from the numbers, but you're actually able to actually go in and implement.
Well, and you're
changes
right. What we
process.
often think is a retention problem is actually a hiring problem.
Yeah, it's so true, right? Like
Yeah.
retention, kind of, it all starts with that first impression, how you're treated,
Yes.
how you're working, how you're trained, how you're valued, and then if all those things are checked, you stick around for more than 6 months.
Yes, absolutely.
The last kind of topic in these 4 pillars is smart growth strategy, and I think this is kind of going full circle again, where Flychain really gets involved and loves thinking through this stuff. But from your lens, people have heard us talk about how to think about growth and prudent growth strategies through some of the product services we offer, but would love, your specific insight on this. And I think, just not to steal your thunder, I think you hit the nail on the head initially too, which is like, you can do this lean. Like, you do not need to go and spend a lot of money. And we see that among our customers, where they think they need to go and put this renovation into the center to win. And that's not always the case. And so would love your thoughts, because I think we share similar opinions, but we have different lenses.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm thinking about Asia and I bring 2 very different backgrounds to this, which is cool, right? And hers was a fitness studio that started out in a pretty grimy gym pre CrossFit, right? Working out in gyms is a normal thing now, but
It was a garage.
working out in garages. Sorry, working out in grimy garages. But it really wasn't. She had nothing special going on there. It was just a grimy garage in Brooklyn up against all the shiny glass front, beautiful studios. And I've spent the last 20 years working in countries where resources are extraordinarily limited, where people don't even necessarily know what autism is or what ABA is, except for our few partners that we're working with in country. Certainly the materials that we're using, the data collection that we're using, it's all pretty basic, and you don't need top of the line materials for good ABA. You just don't, right? It's teaching, it's human to human. So I think there is also this idea, especially as we see big box open up with their shiny new everything everywhere. It's just not necessary. Once you get there and you can do it comfortably, by all means, right? Once it makes financial sense. But to start out, no, no, double no, no, right? And when we talk, it's funny because the sprint that you're talking about, we divide our year into 4 sprints, right? We do the finance, the time and task, the hiring, and marketing. And people will inevitably say, oh, I don't need to market. I have plenty of clients. I don't need to market. And that's not necessarily what we mean, right? We don't necessarily mean more clients. We potentially mean more clients that are a right fit for what your organization offers, whether that's in terms of clinical skill set, whether that's in terms of schedule, et cetera. The other thing is that your game of hiring people is marketing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so marketing becomes a really important piece, and we intentionally do this last, right? We thought we were going to start a business where we just put hiring flywheels into ABA companies. We're like, hey, hiring's a huge pain point. We can get people, we're going to teach the hiring flywheel. And then as we started to talk to organizations, we're like, oh, we can't ramp up hiring. We can't turn on marketing until we get these things really dialed in. And so I think, again, with marketing, same idea, right? Don't go copy paste something that you see big box or even a practitioner down the street doing, because that's not you.
Right.
And marketing is about telling the world who you are. And marketing, said another way, is awareness raising. And I do this little thing where I've traveled to lots of countries, lots of states, et cetera. And I've asked people down the street, hey, is there anywhere around here that works with kids with autism? And I'll be 2 or 3 doors down from an organization. And people go, I don't think that there is, but let me ask so-and-so. They know someone who has a kid with autism. I'm like, I don't think so. And I'm like, hey, so there is actually. Right. But it's you don't even realize how much in your own community, people don't even realize that you're right there.
Right.
And so the other piece of this is that the training, the qualifications to become an RBT are a high school degree.
Right.
And there is very good chance there is somebody working right down the street or living in that neighborhood, if they just knew this existed as a possibility, they'd be all in. And you know that as a clinician, you know, when you learned about this, you were all in. Here you are all in, right? You worked with that one kid and now you're all in. And so you have an opportunity to be that company that introduces someone to this field, which is such a gift.
Powerful.
And likewise for families. There's a family right down the street. There are parents staying awake at night. There are parents going, I don't know what's going on with him. I don't know why he's not following direction. I don't know why he's not talking. I don't know why he's such a picky eater, et cetera, right? Right down the street. And they don't know that you are there. And so I really see marketing, awareness raising as a really, really important component, as almost like a mission, right? Like it's not just about getting more clients so that we can grow. It's about getting more clients so that they can reach their potential in life. So
I love
have soapbox will travel, right?
No, I love it because we see the same thing. And maybe just going back to the growth component there, it's like prudent growth in our lens is absolutely achievable and obtainable. And what we always say is, while you might have the opportunity to maybe like hire a bunch of people and bring kiddos off the wait list, and that's achieving your mission, that is fantastic. But doing so prudently is actually kind of more important, because what we see is there might be an opportunity for growth. And then that happens. You've depleted maybe your cash balance, and there's now Change Healthcare. And so now you kind of put your business in jeopardy, coming from a place of really wanting to probably help and grow and et cetera. But it's this notion of prudent growth that you can slip up and it can be a devastating decision if you wanted to grow too fast, versus growing prudently and tracking things and making sure, because at the end of the day, community care is the real mission here. And not going away is sort of the real mission here.
Exactly.
That care. So, well, thank you so much for joining and spending some time with us today. I know we're excited about this partnership. We'll also be announcing an event that we'll be doing together. So there's more information to come there, and when we follow up, and we'll put everyone's contact information and some collateral as well. But Molly and Asia, it was a pleasure. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. It's always fun. As you know, we could talk about this stuff all day. So hopefully there was
they had to put a time limit on this one. Otherwise, we'd be talking for the next 6 hours. But with that, we'll let you go. And thanks again for joining, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Flychain Reaction. If you'd like to keep the conversation going, feel free to contact us at info@flychain.us or schedule a demo through our website at www.flychain.us. See you next time!